Welcome to Too Many Games, where the more you play, the more you win. Uh, so this is our first video of the new year video podcast. We're going to be, I guess, massively changing things from this way forward. Like last year was a lot of experimentation. I was trying to get this off the ground. Friends kind of dipped in, dipped out. Um, it's not on them to like need to be consistent. This has always been a fun thing. So this is just kind of like me. I going forward with only myself and seeing how it works. So I'll be trying to do like a news section and do a small like spotlight on a game that I've been playing. We'll see how that goes for a while. Still doing video booths with my sister. So if you like those, then we're still doing them. We're currently on hiatus due to technical difficulties, but we do plan on getting back into it. We also still have plans to do the Last of Us TV series as a Patreon exclusive. So if you want to check those out, then get onto our Patreon and you'll be able to listen. So, as it's the first of the year, and I've done a year of this podcast, I kind of want to do like a top 10 situation. But I don't like. I mean, I know review scores are necessary, and they're very much a good indication of whether a game is good or bad. But I feel like a lot of times when people do these, they can't get their personal bias behind them, and so the review scores themselves are kind of tainted. Plus you have the whole like if a game is too quote unquote controversial, then people can review bomb or review like what's the reverse of review bomb? Is it like a review upvote or whatever? um so I mean, scores are kind of like a spoonful of sugar situation. So in that case, I I don't like reviews. I do like reviews. I don't like review scores. I don't like dictating everything based on, well, this guy said it was a 6 out of 10, so that must mean this game is trash. Like, there's a lot of hard work put into it, and even if it didn't come together wholesomely, then um I feel like there still could be some things to pay attention to. And even some of the best games of last year had a lot of problems that I had where, as if you go back and listen, I had lots to say about very specific things on, say, Horizon Forbidden West. Um, so with that in mind, I didn't want to do like top 10 best games and top 10 worst games and all that shit. So I'm just going to go through the 16 games that came out last year that I did play. Um, they're not going to be in any order. They're not going to be ranked so much as me just saying what my personal experience with them was. Um, but at the end of it, I will tell you what my game of the overall year was. So with that, let's just jump into it. First game that I played last year was Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's another new game from the developers of Game Freak, and it came out in January 28th. Big acclaim and stuff. This was the Pokemon game I've been waiting for years. Now, if you go back and listen to kind of the Pokemon Scarlet episode we did a couple months ago, I was telling my friend Adam, like I fell off around the Game Boy Advance era because they were the exact same thing over and over and over. And even Sword and Shield was basically the same thing, and they were trying to do the open world thing and just it had so many massive problems. Well, Arceus was the next step that I was expecting it to have. Um, it was the open world RPG, but you could actually interact with your Pokemon. You can, if you capture a giant flying Pokemon, you could use that Pokemon to fly across the map. You freely capture Pokemon as you're running around and stuff. Your Pokemon do things outside of just battling back and forth. It that was the next step, and even within battles, you had other things like changing them to like a quick like a quick style or a strong style, so it kind of puts a little extra modifiers between them as you're fighting. And then unfortunately they came out with Scarlet and Violet and went back to the old way, and it was a complete trash show. So like I hope we get more of the Pokemon Legends stuff, because Arceus was definitely definitely something to check out. If you fell off a Pokemon, this is a game to try out, because it's the next, it evolved as it were.
Your feet in the air and your head on the ground.
Hurry up!
Your head will There's nothing
Number 2 was Dying Light 2 Stay Human, developed by Techland Studios and released on February 4th. Now, Dying Light was a very interesting game. It was from the studio that originally came out with Dead Island, which was like an RPG zombie game set on a vacation resort on an island. They wanted to do like a big open world thing that kind of like did more of an action RPG than a stricter RPG situation. And Dying Light was the result of that, and it was a lot of fun. You were dropped into like this city that's supposed to be like I don't know, South America or something. There's survivors there. There's a bunch of zombies. There's like upgraded zombie monsters. There's cult members. There's rival factions and stuff. And it had all these interesting skills with like parkour and crafting and stuff. And it's like you level up by actually doing those things. So you want to level up your running? Well, you just keep running, and then that all gave you skill points that you could put into this massive skill tree. Dying Light 2 was kind of a long-awaited sequel. It's like, how are they going to up that? Well, they upped it by setting it 22 years after Dying Light. There's still zombies everywhere. The world is even more decrepit. Basically, entire townships and cities are built never knowing what it was like before zombies. But somehow there's still like the viral suppressant around. You get infected early on, and so you're fighting the zombie powers emerging, which is just a really dumb concept. Like, I like the idea of being infected and slowly turning throughout the game, but then it's like, oh no, you're going to be one that's special infected. So you have like extreme jumping ability and extreme see in the dark ability and stuff, and it just turns you into a superhuman within this situation. And it's like, it sucks. On top of that, like all of the pants in the game are like parachute pants, like I didn't like any of the costumes. All the city structures kind of look garbage. The skill tree, like you still have the ability to like uh level up, like if you're sprinting it levels up your sprint and stuff, but now instead of like just getting a talent point, you're now given like, oh well, this is a sprinting talent point or this is a fighting talent point, and so it made the talent tree completely way stricter, and then all of the most useful abilities are like super deep in the talent trees, that it's like this game is not fun. This game is now a grind. I do not like this. um I never, in fact, actually finished it. I got probably about 2/3 to halfway done. And then I I was just so fucking bored. I turned it off, and I was like, I'll wait a little while, and Horizon should be right around the corner. But yeah, I looked up streamers and saw them finishing the game, and I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't waste the rest of my time on that because that ending was horrible.
A little boy wants to pretend he's a grown-up. A precious little boy.
The old ones perished 1,000 years ago. Their great cities turned to graves. In their place came new life.
Next up, we have Horizon Forbidden West, developed by Guerrilla Games. Came out on February 18th. Now, this was the one that I believe it was our first episode of Too Many Games. I went really in depth, in particular about a situation that happened at the end of the game that just really sent me over the edge. It's definitely a gorgeous game. It's a really good sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. And it's just like, I'm not asking for it to be like every other open world game and stuff, but at the same time, it's like, don't sell me on, oh, if you do these precise shootings and stuff, then you can change the way the battlefield works, but then make it entirely impossible to do precise shooting in a game. Like, fucking fix your shit, fix your guns, fix the hit markers, do something. But it did not fucking work for me. This is still one of the better games I played. The end of the story was really messed up, and it definitely killed all drive I have for whatever comes next, because it's like, I really don't want to see what comes. I don't want to see it because you guys screwed this one up so badly. And it's like, I regret saying that just now. Like, they didn't screw it up. They did what they wanted to do. It just didn't work for me, you know? Like, this story did not work for me. I am not interested in number 3. I'll probably still play it because they are very gorgeous games to play. But, yeah.
Comes. I will be ready.
Make of thyselves that which ye desire, be it a lord, be it a god. But should ye fail to become aught at all, ye will be forsaken, amounting only to sacrifices.
Number 4, Elden Ring, developed by From Software, came out on February 25th. This is the like big scale, long awaited follow up to the Dark Souls games. You know, as with all established franchises, it's like, oh, new console's coming out. What are they gonna do with it and stuff? Well, they did this. It's a massive open world. You know, you got your Dark Souls influence all over the place. Has kind of it was written by Miyazaki and George R. R. Martin and stuff, but it's more of like George R. R. Martin helped do with the framework of the story. Like, he didn't do a whole lot of the writing, but he did help with the framework. But you know, it's like it's massive. It's like it's basically like a Breath of the Wild style massive. It's when you load in, you're like in this little cave, and then you come out the door, and it's like just massive. And every time you pass another vista, there's just even more land, and it always seemed endless, you know. Tack on that, like, so many hidden dungeons. Like, you just kind of like jumping around rocks and stuff, and then you're like, oh man, here's a cave with like 3 bosses inside of it and shit, and a whole bunch of gear. It's just, it was fantastic. It's no wonder it won Game of the Year. Like, it's great. The Dark Souls style of RPG where you can literally build your own way. It's like a complete open structure on how you build your character, what you equip and stuff. And that enables you to fight the bosses. And because the bosses are very much, you know, hitbox style, I mean, you could beat the game as a level 1 nothing, or you could beat the game as like a level 500 with all of the best gear, or you could beat the game as like glass cannon build where you just shoot massive magic bolts at things. You know, like, my favorite style of gameplay in the Dark Souls games is to be the beefy soldier. Yeah, just heavy plate armor, heavy shield, and a big ass weapon. You know, where I don't get knocked around, I don't take much damage, and then it's just like in that one brief opening, I could just slam and see a huge chunk of health bar go down. That said, I do have problems with it, and the problems are not developer intentional. They're like, there's so many things to explore and do stuff, free roam, all of that shit. Yet we, in the gaming community, you go back to this, oh well, that's not a legitimate run because you power leveled, or you know, that's not a legitimate run, you should be building this one hit build kind of thing. It's like, you know, this game was designed to be play it your way. You can't get mad at people playing their way. There is no like somebody beat it better than the other. It's just somebody played it their way and another person played it their way. That's how it's played. Even without intending to over level, you want to see everything. So by seeing everything, you get so much XP that you just become over leveled for a large portion of the game. It's a thing that happens in this. The only way to not be over leveled is either not spend your XP or by speed running the main content. And that's not fun unless you're one of the people who likes that. Then that's fun for you, but that's not everyone. On top of that, the Dark Souls games are, I find, problematic just because, like, they're primarily single player focused. They do have a multiplayer focus on it as well. You know, there's PvP arenas, there's the invasions, there's the Hopi helpers that come over and stuff. Like, that is built into the game, yes. The fact is, like, the items that come out on launch are constantly getting like tweaked and rebuffed or nerfed or whatever throughout the game series. So it's like if you in the first month you find a thing that like one hits all bosses, well, by the third month it's completely patched and now the damage doesn't scale that high. You know, it's like it's. I understand that it's also a problem with PvP, but it's a single player game. You launch the game with this stuff, it's not a game breaking bug. It's working as intended. You should not be able to patch or nerf that. That's how it launched. That's how it should be. Unless it's a bug, and these things are not bugs. They're just, you can technically call them exploits, but again, you have to use in-game mechanics to build it a very specific way. So it's not exactly an exploit. You're just building it with the game engine. So, you know, this is another one I have yet to completely beat. I'm on like the last 3 bosses, and I'm getting my ass kicked because, like I said, I built it myself as like this tanky knight guy, and Millennia, she every time she hits you, completely refills her health, and I did not build my character to be swift and dodgy. So it's like I completely have to unlearn my style of fighting to play a different way on this boss. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. The game is challenging me to play a different way. I just hit a brick wall and played something else and haven't been back to it.
You see things others can't.
Number 5 is Ghostwire Tokyo, developed by Tango Gameworks, came out on March 25th.
Others don't.
Ugh, this game. It's a first-person shooter published by Bethesda.
Fight when others won't.
Yeah. And the idea is when in Tokyo, there's this whole ghost realm that kind of like takes over the city. You play a kind of a spiritual shaman who uses Japanese spell work to defeat these ghosts and demons, send them back to where they came from. And it's supposed to be this whole thing of you undoing this ghost realm. But my God, it's boring. The city is like super dense but completely empty except for like little pockets of enemies. But there's like collectibles all over the fucking place. So it's like you're just constantly just running around to collect all of these little fucking pieces. The style is really good, but at the same time it's like since your weapons in this case is basically you casting spells, they have a very specific limit on your spells. And so it's like it almost takes I'm gonna use kind of like a gunplay analogy to explain it, but basically it takes a full clip to kill one of the more basic enemies, because the idea is once you kill him, then you'll get refilled and you're supposed to like block and stuff to get more, or do like a melee attack to get more. And it's the same kind of feeling as Doom Eternal, where it's like they wanted to make it more tense and in your face and stuff, and so they made all of the guns like hold a third of the ammo that they used to, just so that it forced you to like change your weapons around and play completely different and stuff. And it's like, it sucks. I hate that. Like, how about when, if Call of Duty gives me a pistol, if I'm shooting someone in the chest, yeah, it's going to take a lot more shots than an AK-47. But if I shoot him in the face, it's still going to kill the guy. Like, come on. It's a fucking gun. It's not fun when it's such a grind to kill anything in this game. And I dropped it pretty quick. Yeah. I never finished it. I didn't. I probably put in maybe 3-4 hours of it, and most of that was literally just climbing to rooftops to collect shit. Like I didn't get that far into the story. It was dumb. Next up, we have Kirby and the Forbidden Lands, developed by HAL Laboratories. Came out on March 25th. Um, Kirby is always fun. Most mainline Nintendo games are always fun. So this is no exception. I mean, it's meant for smaller kids, so it's a pretty easy game to go through. Each level has a bunch of Waddle Dees that you can save, and each of the Waddle Dees have a way of like a way of rescuing them. So like there's 5 Waddle Dees on a level. Well, one's for completing the level, two's for finding them hidden on the level, and then you have like number 4 is by defeating the level with a very specific weapon, and number 5 is for defeating the level without getting hit once, kind of thing. So it like makes you go back and stuff, and every level is pretty short, so it's pretty easy to get them. And then at the same time, like they do the thing where 1 and 2 are known as you start the level, and then the other 3 are question marks. Well, as you collect number 1 and 2, the number 3 will like tell you where it's hidden, or not exactly like tell you where it's hidden, but it'll be like, this Waddle Dee liked ice cream. Okay, so go through the level and find where the ice cream store is, and there's a secret door somewhere around there, kind of thing. So this was a lot of fun. I always enjoy a mainline Nintendo game because they're pretty simple and fun.
Thing about the Weird West is, it ain't kind. Flesh eaters took your husband, killed your son cold. Time to dig up them shooting irons.
Next up, we have Weird West, developed by Wolfhead Studios, released on March 31st. This is one of those Devolver Digital games, which is kind of like a weird indie game that gets released. Top-down action role-playing game, kind of like a Western sim, if you will, with a permadeath mode. It's the story of 5 bounty hunters. Each one has their own story, but they do kind of like have overlapping tendencies. This one is another like really good system. Like, yeah, I'll be honest. I've been hankering for the new Baldur's Gate with the ice top-down role-playing style. Yes, I have the early access. I played it a lot when it first went to early access, and I completely stopped. 1, because I don't want the rest of the game ruined. 2, because they keep wiping all data anyway. So it's like, even if I get like put 20 hours into it, all of that save will be gone by the time the real game launches. So it's like, I got the taste and know this is a game I'm going to sink a lot of time into, so I'm waiting for it. So Weird West comes out, and it's like, it's like a $30-$40 game, and it kind of gave me that feel where it's set in the old West and stuff, but it has that top-down RPG feel. So this was another one that was a lot of fun, and it's that kind of like open RPG where say a strict RPG is kind of like, oh well, I have to go talk to this cattle rancher to ask him to co-sign a ticket so I could get on the stagecoach. And then he's going to send me off somewhere to go do a deed for him before he signs the ticket for me to get on the stagecoach. It so kind of has that little breadcrumb system. An open RPG is you go talk to the guy and he gives you that quest, and you can literally walk out the door, go around, climb into the window, sift through his desk, and find a ticket yourself and completely skip his stupid quest. It's like, nah, we ain't doing that. I'm going on the stagecoach now. So that, I like those kinds of games. I got really into it during Divinity 2. And yeah, it's great. This is a great game.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in the half shell.
Number 8, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge by Tribute Games, released on June 16th. This was the long-awaited, beat 'em up style game, sequel to Turtles in Time and stuff from the Super Nintendo. Again, gorgeous artwork. The entire game looks exactly like the 80s cartoon. The music is amazing, each level having almost 2 to 3 brand new tracks that are just fucking rocking. Loved every second of it. I bought it on multiple consoles just so I could play with all my friends and stuff. The only problem I had was the idea of the 6-player co-op. Now, obviously, you're expecting at least a 4-player co-op so that, you all could be at least one of the turtles. That's expected. 6 players, oh, that's going to be crazy. And yeah, if you saw the people playing 6-player co-op, it's just specials going off all the time. Just enemies are walking onto the screen and getting shredded. Bosses were a joke, even on the hardest difficulty because of it. But at the same time, that meant there was only one unlockable character, Casey Jones. I really feel if they had just kept it at 4, that would give you 3 unlockable characters. You could have put one on after each difficulty level or something. Give you something more to achieve as you play. So I feel like that's probably the biggest misstep. For a more in-depth video or a more in-depth look, we did do an episode on Shredder's Revenge if you want to go check that out. At number 9, we have the Cuphead DLC that was developed by Studio MDHR. Came out on June 30th. Cuphead is amazing. It's an amazing game. Side-scrolling boss rush game, some platforming levels. The first game, super difficult, but is very satisfying to complete it. It was one of those that definitely pushed me to that point of I never want to play this again, but I'll give it one more go kind of thing. It was very addictive. It had that really old school style of call it rubber hose style of animation. They went really in depth and got it to look exactly like that old school style, especially with some of the levels that have the background as an actual model that rotates and stuff. It looks amazing. And then they did the Netflix animated series, which it's based on the game. It has the game characters, but it's nothing like the game. It is not written like the game. None of the jokes work like the era that the game is supposed to be set in. I can't believe it got a second season. Avoid that piece of shit show. But a DLC was announced ages ago. Back in 2017. They announced that the DLC was coming out called The Delicious Last Course. So we've been waiting for news on it. And it's like, well, it's a DLC. Like, how long is it going to take? You guys already have all the work. Well, they spend time to draw out every cell of the animation, and then they animate it, and then they digitize the animation to make it the game. It's a very long and arduous process. So, um, but I mean, the quality of their work definitely still makes this a standout game. Following that, we have Stray, which was developed by Blue 12 Studios and came out on July 19th. Stray is the kitty game. It's a third-person game where you play as a little kitty and you run around a post-apocalyptic world that only has robots who are curious about the humans that built them. Yeah, we did a pretty decent episode based on it. It came out. It's PlayStation exclusive. It came out for everyone who had PlayStation Plus, similar to how Microsoft does the Game Pass launch day games. And yeah, this was fantastic. It definitely deserves some game awards. It was not, I don't feel it was a good enough one to really be part of the running for game of the year. It was definitely a really good game. It was a good indie game. Very good music style. But it was a simple platformer. It was just this cat running around and experiencing the world. It wasn't really too much more than that.
So why'd you leave Boston?
I've been on quite the adventure, little brother.
I reckon it's got something to do with that girl.
It's got everything to do with that little girl.
Number 11, we have Last of Us Part 1, developed by Naughty Dog. Came out on September 2nd. This is the remake to the 2013 game, The Last of Us, the PlayStation 3 game that was then remastered on the PS4. So now the PS5 gets a full remake that they say is ground up. But as I stated in an episode, it is not ground up because it still has all of the bugs and some of the hitbox frameworks and shit. This is not ground up. All they did was retouch all of the graphics. It's definitely beautiful. One of the best ways to play The Last of Us. If you've never played it and you just got a PS5, this is the version to get. This is a great version. But if you have all of the other versions, this one can sit out. Because there was even the Left Behind DLC that they had every opportunity to form that into the main game and make it just one long narrative, and they decided against it and just kept it separate. They took away the online multiplayer mode for whatever reason, maybe because Factions is coming out soon and they didn't want to deal with online servers until then, but that just makes it, it's not a remake at that point. Yeah, I have my thoughts on the TV show, and I do not like the fungus turning into tendrils. So yeah, as far as the most realistic, lifelike version of the game story, Last of Us Part 1 I will always go back to and play. However, I am mad that it cost me $70.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of?
Sidekick.
inadequate.
Number 12, we have Gotham Knights, developed by WB Games Montreal. Came out on October 21st. So this game, when it was originally announced, it was announced alongside Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, which was going to be the Rocksteady's next game that follows up the Arkham series. Gotham Knights does not follow the Arkham series. I am tired of seeing all of the fucking reviews and reports and fucking news articles about this is the follow-up to the Arkham series. It is not. This is its own thing. They made it very clear and everyone tends to ignore them. But ever since the first time this was announced, they said this is not part of the Arkham series. This is its own thing. So the fact that everyone is ranking it poorly because of that are stupid. It has other reasons to be ranked poorly, including an entire live service style structure where they removed the live service part of it. So it's just grindy for no reason. It's just insanely grindy. Get all of these pieces of stuff, but it's like a very apparent that they built it to be live service, and then live service started to fucking tank, and so they're like, we have to get rid of the live service part, but we don't want to spend extra money to completely rebuild the game, so let's just remove all the time gates. There you go. The story was actually pretty decent up until the very end. I liked where they were going with it, and then they just kind of like flipped like in the very last cutscene and said fuck you, basically. So that's disappointing. The combat was hit or miss. Here's another thing I saw in a lot of people's experiences. They kept throwing a fit that Red Hood's guns don't actually kill people. They say it many times in the games. It's in the fucking comics. It's in the cartoons. Once he joins the Bat Clan, his guns are stun shooting mechanics. They are not actual guns. They do not shoot actual bullets. It's like shooting rubber bullets. So yeah, his guns don't fucking kill people. Get that through your skull. Jesus Christ.
Everyone keeps secrets. Sometimes it's the only way to protect the ones we love.
Number 13, we have God of War Ragnarok, developed by Santa Monica Studios. Came out on November 9th. This is the long-awaited, because it's only been like 3 years. But this is the sequel to the God of War. It wouldn't be a remake, reimagining, I guess. The 2018 PS4 game, which saw Kratos in the land of the Vikings. That game was amazing. This game is even more amazing. You can definitely, like, there are many parts of it where it's like, I think I'm pretty close to the end, and I'm really far from the end. Like, this game is massive. It's a long one, worth every minute. You can see where it was originally going to be 2 games, and then they shrunk it down to 1. The biggest thing for me, though, is the final battle with Odin. Did not work for me. The final battle with Baldur in the first game was amazing, because it was like Kratos and Atreus and Baldur, and they're just literally beating the shit out of each other, and neither of them could die, and so they're just like throwing themselves around the battlefield, destroying everything, you know. And you would think that something with Odin would be like even more epic, and it just kind of like turned into like 4 people ganging up on an old man who couldn't fight back. Like they could have done something bigger with it, and it just wasn't. It's definitely a very emotional ending to the story and wrapped up a bunch of things. But the final battle with Odin himself was very lackluster. And for that, that's why I personally feel like it did not it cannot be Elden Ring's game of the year, because Elden Ring's every boss was very significant and epic and stuff, but Ragnarok, they missed it on that last one.
We will make our own destiny.
Next up, we have World of Warcraft Dragonflight, developed by Blizzard Entertainment. Came out on November 28th. This is the 9th expansion pack for the MMO World of Warcraft, which, you know, I may have brought up 1 or 2 times across the last year on this podcast, but so after about 2 years of the Shadowlands expansion, which was completely hollow and garbage and just had a bunch of mechanics in it that were just, they made you miserable. The story was lousy. Everything just, it was such a miserable slog to play through that expansion. Dragonflight wasn't out. And me and Travis, we went full in depth on the announcement there in one of our videos. It looked amazing. Everyone was throwing a fit that the Dragonflying was a ripoff of Guild Wars 2, and it's like, so, like, you know, games can copy each other's mechanics if it will make the game better. It's like, yeah, congratulations. Guild Wars 2 did an amazing job with their mount system. If you want that, go play that game. World of Warcraft is not trying to copy everything from that game. They just want to bring something new and fresh to this game. And for the players who are still playing this game, that was very much needed. Especially after Shadowlands and how restrictive it was on your mount control and complete movement entirely. Yeah, Dragonfly came out. It fucking looks gorgeous. The story is amazing. A lot of the mechanics that slowed you down in the previous expansion were completely removed and changed. The crafting system got overhauled, so it's a lot more fun to do. Like, all of the armor looks great. The dragon flying is definitely the best feature of it, because it feels so much more free and carefree. And it's like there's limitations on how much you could fly, but at the same time, it's almost 5 times faster than the flying that we've had before. So it's like you still get that sense of speed, and then the more you get used to that style of flying, the more consistent you could keep at that speed. So this was definitely much needed. A lot of the they put out a kind of a roadmap over the next year, and a lot of the stuff they plan on bringing out is like, this is all much needed stuff. That said, there's still going to be a couple problems and stuff. I still do not like the vault. Like, I like the idea of the vault. Basically the vault is the more you raid, depending on how many bosses you kill, you can unlock a free piece every week within the vault. The more you do Mythic Plus, you can unlock free pieces. The more you PvP, you can unlock free pieces. So you could have up to 9 free pieces unlocked in the vault by reset every week. But you can only choose one of them. and it is such a shit system. It's like, why did I put so much time in a week if I can only pick one thing? I should be able to pick one thing per tier. That way, like, if I'm focusing Mythic Plus, I get rewarded for focusing Mythic Plus. If I focus Mythic Plus and rating, I should get rewarded for Mythic Plus and rating. It's just one of those things where it's done that way to slow down how fast people get gear, but it really only hurts the people who aren't playing the game 24/7. Because as we saw, even with all of these roadblocks and shit, there were people who were max level on day 2, max gear score on day 3. They went into the raid when it launched already being able to do the mythic version of the raid and getting that gear, and they're basically done with the game. And Blizzard is still like, well, we don't want everybody to gear out too fast. It's like, these guys literally grinded their ass off to get all this fucking gear and shit. This person who works a 40-hour job should not be held so far behind because they don't have time to grind all days and all hours. And so there's still some systems built into the game that have that slow pace to it. And it's frustrating to see. And it's also frustrating that the community decides on Blizzard on that one. I cannot place it, but they like to see poor people suffer, basically.
How long was I in that crypt?
I know where the sun rises.
No more than a few centuries.
Centuries? And what of Lilith?
Fallen by your hand.
Number 15 is Marvel's Midnight Suns, developed by Firaxis Games. Came out on December 2nd. Firaxis Games, they did a really good job with the tactical role-playing game XCOM, Enemy Unknown. And then there's XCOM 2, Enemy Within. Fucking amazing tactical games. Like, all of a sudden, they're making a Marvel game. And it's like, oh my god, what are they going to do with this? This is great, you know? And then shortly before launch, it came out that it's like the characters aren't going to be the typical style character. Like there's going to be the tactical part where you're moving around the battlefield to kill certain enemies at a time, but it's all going to be card based. So each character is going to have a deck of their own cards, and you take these 3 characters into a match with you. So all of their cards just kind of get shuffled together. So you can only use the attack as you play a card, and you can only play 3 cards a turn. So it kind of like turns into this tactical / card battle game. And I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I have to say, I really liked it. I am not saying that it's a method that should be adopted for like other strategy games, but the way they put it through this way, it was a lot of fun. I only just recently beat it, but I was playing it a lot. I got really into it. I enjoyed every minute of it. It not only had the typical XCOM style strategy within the matches, but you can build relationships outside of the fights and stuff, similar to Fire Emblem. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun like playing with it's going to sound weird, but it's like it was a lot of fun playing with X-Men characters alongside Avengers characters. I mean, I get it. Disney now owns all of it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, that was much needed in the last Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Marvel versus Capcom. It's like, you know, there's a lot of mutants that are fun to play as.
Counting on you again, old friend. 3, 2, 1. That used to always work. Well, it did that one time.
Life sign detected.
Grab him. Hey, what are you doing?
Say I don't need anyone.
What the hell?
But I do.
There was an outbreak.
Why is it all
They killed everyone. Trying to contain it. Everyone.
And finally, we have Callisto Protocol, developed by Striking Distance Studios, came out on December 2nd. Now, this was the spiritual successor to Dead Space games because it was directed by the co-creator Glenn Schofield. When the game was first being developed, it was originally going to be set in the PUBG, the PlayerUnknown Battleground universe, and then that never really got off the ground, so they took those assets and just kind of changed it into their own unique property that was similar to Dead Space, but had its own like fighting mechanics and stuff. It's definitely one of the best looking games on PS5. I've heard a whole lot of bad things about the rest of the game, like the story and the combat, but I haven't played through it. I got Midnight Suns and Callisto Protocol at the same time. I devoted all my time to Midnight Suns. I probably put an hour into the Callisto Protocol. I have to say the combat is unique. I wouldn't say it's terrible yet until I get further in and do some boss battles with it and stuff. Right now, I'll just say it's unique because it's not buggy enough to be like, oh, this is a horrible thing. This just could be a new way of playing games. And for that, I want to give it a shot, an actual shot. I mean, you think about it like Aliens versus Predator way back on the first PlayStation. That was when they were using the toggle sticks to move the camera left and right, and then R1 was shooting your gun, and reporters at that time called it a terrible control scheme, and now like that's the basis for every first person shooter, you know. So I don't want to call this a terrible control scheme. I want to try it out. I want to see what it does, give everything a fair shake in a sense. So those are the 16 games I played this year. And you know, a quick commentary on each one, I guess. My game of the year, however, it's not Elden Ring. So that it's actually Dragonflight. And the reason for that is Elden Ring, yes, it's a solid game. It's amazing. It's very packed with content and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's exactly like Dark Souls 3. Not a bad thing, but they didn't really there wasn't a whole lot of innovation. There wasn't a whole lot of change from that style. There was just more of it, you know. Dragonflight, they changed a lot of things, and I feel like they deserve some respect as to like how much they changed compared to the previous iterations. It was like when it was announced, I thought it was going to be a breath of fresh air for the game and its content, and it came out and it was. It's an amazing expansion to the game. If you stop playing even as far back as like Legion, fucking pick up Dragonflight and go back to good old stories about dragons and fantasy.
Together, we shall be Azeroth's protectors once again. Here, the new age of dragons shall begin.
So that'll do it for this episode. And I just want to say thank you guys for listening to me for a year. We'll try to make it another year. And right now, the program is always evolving, always changing to not just be a better show, but to also kind of like fit our lifestyles in the real world. Every now and then, I do plan on I'll get some of them like Adam back, get some other friends on, but I'm not going to try to force them to stay consistent. Like I'll be the consistent one, and then I'll try to find them when I can to bring them on. But yeah, well, I do want to do half news story and half game story, and try to talk about that. So thank you for listening. If you're interested, please sign up to be one of our Patreons at patreon.com/videobooze. Check us out on any podcast platform like Spotify, Google Play, or Apple's iTunes. Check out any of our other programming like Video Boost that I do with my sister, where we go through movies. Right now, we have a bunch of video game movies that we go in depth on, and we plan on expanding that for this coming year. And remember, if you want to hear our thoughts on the Last of Us TV series, you're going to have to be a Patreon subscriber, because those will be Patreon exclusive. Thank you and good night.